Alrighty. Welcome everybody to the first Filecoin Core Devs meeting. It is September 11th, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about the Core Devs meeting itself, along with talking about the Filecoin improvement process, the FIP process. We're going to have opportunities for updates from each of the different Filecoin implementations that are under works right now, and then also talk a little bit about two topics. One is cross-implementation conformance testing, which a number of groups are using to help make sure our implementations are interoperable. And then also very briefly around kind of upgrade process and some of the logic there. So that's what's on the agenda so far for today, but feel free to add any additional things. Maybe at a very high level, I'm taking notes and I will PR them to the Filecoin project TPM repo, which has a record of kind of all of our meetings and how to propose agenda items. And then each agenda itself is going to be an issue here so that people can add to it ahead of time, which has the relevant information for it. So that is the meeting we're in. The main purpose of this meeting is really for groups across the different implementations and core protocol developers, including folks from kind of the security side, crypto econ side, and others who might be proposing Fips and improvements to the protocol itself, kind of meet and discuss some of the finer aspects of those technical issues. So it gives us an opportunity to both share status, make decisions across the protocols, and also kind of discuss some of the nitty-gritty of making sure we stay interoperable, because that is our aim here. And so these meetings are currently scheduled bi-weekly, and we'll kind of see what the demand is in the near versus longer term, and we can always adjust from there if we feel like we have more things we want to talk about, or less, though that would surprise me. And so that is the main purpose of these meetings so far. Is there anyone else who has questions along that topic, or any requests around these meetings and how we can use them well?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Hey folks, I just wanted to point out that I'm gonna have to leave in like 10 minutes. So if there's any topics regarding performance testing and so on, if we can cover them earlier, that would be great.
Awesome. Thank you for the heads up, Rule. That is on our agenda. It was a little bit later, but let's move that one up to right now then, so that we can get it while you're around. And thank you for also demonstrating good protective face covering.
Yeah, just had to take the dog out for a walk. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. What do we want to discuss?
So this is just one of the first of many Core Dev weekly meetings, and so we have folks here from each of the different Filecoin implementations right now, and it's a good opportunity to kind of highlight how they're being used by different implementations, what exists well so far, and the best ways of utilizing that, and then what's coming in the near future that teams should be kind of utilizing to help make sure we stay interoperable.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So I think you all are probably part of the Filecoin test vectors channel on the Filecoin Slack. We have been kind of like giving a lot of update, and there's been a lot of conversation around test vectors. Basically, the goal of test vectors is to use to provide a repository and provide a corpus of interoperable test vectors. And sorry, I'm gonna have to pick up my dogs. So just give me a second.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, this. Are you guys recording this? This is embarrassing.
We are, and we're going to post it on YouTube. So this is memorialized forever, Raul.
Oh, this is fantastic. All right, I've just named this part. All right, do you want me to show it to the camera?
Oh, no, I think we're okay.
All right. So yeah, so basically there are three kinds of vectors. All of them are interoperable. They're defined in JSON. We have, there is a JSON schema as well, which serves as a good checkpoint validation with which every single vector that we commit into a repo is verified against. We have created a builder API with which we can craft these test vectors. There are two methods to create test vectors. There is the generative method, which basically consists of using a implementation. Right now, there is a builder API for the Lotus implementation, which we consider the reference implementation. But we can create, or we can consider ways to plug in the builder API or an analog, kind of like an equivalent of that into other implementations, so that we can generate vectors from other implementations as well. So there is the generative approach and there is the extractive approach. The extractive approach consists of basically, hey, we have a live network, there are events of interest, there are messages, tip sets, and there's going to be sequence of blocks that we want to capture into a test vector. So basically pointing a framework and pointing a program against a JSON RPC from a client to be able to capture a set of events that have happened in a real network, so that we can then capture them into test vectors and use them as regression tests for the future for every single implementation. That is kind of like the second approach. So you've all seen the corpus. It is maintained by a bot. So we don't touch the JSON test vectors manually ever. We just commit the scripts, changes to the scripts, changes to the dependencies, and a bot comes along and sends in a PR that updates the vectors. So the vectors are never touched manually. Currently, I think Forest Forest has been kind of like a great adopter here. They like jumped on this the very day that we released it and made it public. So kudos on that. This has been amazing work, and I can't tell you how pumped the team is to like have seen such immediate traction for the work that we're doing. And I know that you guys were looking for it, so it's great. You've been providing a constant stream of feedback, which is amazing, and that has helped us shape many things. And yeah, keep doing that. That's great. And yeah, and I think you guys have like 66 vectors already that you are conformant with. There is one thing, so we are, as we create test vectors, we are finding circumstances within Lotus or within spec actors that do not conform to our expectation of how things should behave. Unfortunately, the written spec and the documented spec is not really in a great state right now. So it's like for some of these circumstances, it could be like difficult to say to like basically delineate and say, hey, yeah, this is like the theory is correct or the practice is correct. So basically, what we're doing with these test vectors, where we have like some form of conflict, is to explicitly tag them as incorrect or broken. So these vectors are committed as well, that tested every single time, or they can be tested against the implementation, or they can be excluded from the test that I effectively executed. If they're tested against the implementation, then the assertion needs to be flipped. So basically, what you need to do is, hey, I'm gonna run this test vector. I'm gonna check that the output of the test vector is not what is expressed in the test vector. That could be considered a pass, or either you could skip the test vector at that point, right? Because it's not strictly a pass. So yeah, so those are like a few touches. What's coming next is, so we have two categories of test vectors right now. There's a message class vector and the tipset class vector. And there's going to be a third one that we're going to be adding. Ideally, it's not going to happen today, but it's probably going to happen at the start of next week. It's called the block sequence vector, and this basically addresses the sinker. So what this vector expresses is a set of raw blocks that are arriving from the network at given points in time, which are expressed as offsets from Genesis. So the preconditions of this test vector, it's going to be a Genesis, it's going to be a car, it's going to be a state tree, and it's going to be a chain history. And the Genesis will contain obviously the Genesis timestamp. And from there, the applies of this test vector are going to be a sequence of tuples of timestamps with the raw block. And for simulating things like failed signatures, failed randomness, failed whatever you name it, there's going to be a set of what we call, so in Lotus, there are a set of interfaces that kind of like basically encapsulate a set of functions to verify signatures, to get randomness, and so on. These are called like FFI verifier and syscalls and so on. So we're going to create a set and spec out a set of pure functions for each of these ones that basically says when you receive a signature that contains this sequence of bytes, you have to fail. If it contains this other sequence of bytes, then you have to succeed. And this way, we will be able to control what the actual behavior from these functions has to be within the test without actually having to, to incur in the cost of like generating the right input for a verification of the signature to succeed and things like that. So yeah, I think that's spoken for too long now.
It's super awesome. Anything from anyone who's using test vectors downstream? Any things you're enjoying about it so far, or requests or feedback for Raul?
I mean, just trying to kind of generally just kind of, I guess, echoing what Raul said was just, yeah, we're definitely very excited for the vectors. I mean, like as he mentioned, it's been something we've been asking about for a while. That's why we were so quick to kind of jump on it. And yeah, like we're passing all the vectors except for ones that are kind of marked as invalid or have kind of flagged as invalid. So yeah, things are definitely looking good. I just have one question about like the extraction vectors. How are you deciding like what is like valid to kind of pull from or extract from, or are you just picking stuff that's like early on in the chain so you don't have, a bloated car file or something like that?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. We are right now so basically when we find a message that we want to pick up, that we want to extract, we get the state tree at that point, and then we prune it and we shake it to retain only the actors that were effectively touched by that particular message. It is not perfect. Some actors, obviously like the storage power actor and a few other actors, the market actors and so on, do contain a lot of data. So it's like right now we've gotten to a point where, with the lowest we have gotten is like a 15 megabyte vector, which is not ideal. One potential solution there would be to dive into the state of these particular like actors that we know contain a lot of data and explicitly prune what we don't think is relevant, but that has a huge handicap, and doing any manipulations has a huge handicap, which is if you alter at any given point in time the logic of spec actors or the logic of like the equivalent in the implementation in a way that expects that data that was present in the network and that was present in the state tree back then, but you decided to prune because it wasn't needed with the previous version of the actor, then you're basically have no way out. You have basically lost a vector. Things that we could do there is save traceability information so that we know exactly the message from which network, and like we identify the message from which the vector was extracted, so we can re-extract it again. But yeah, it's a tricky question. It's pretty tricky. We're gonna have to like, yeah, gonna have to iterate on this a little bit more. Did that more or less answer your question, Austin?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was just more curious about how it was going to come out, because I definitely see that as a challenge to kind of get, a small enough state to fit in a vector from just like a full live network. Totally,
yeah. It is something that is under active. So one of our developers, Will, is focusing on this, and is right now doing another thing, but he's going to continue working on this particular problem as of like mid next week. So maybe we can connect, like I can connect you with him and you can discuss other ideas if you want to get involved. One thing that I wanted to say is that probably not this week, but the week after, we're going to start a little project to create a dashboard so that is kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen No.Green. There's sort of like this huge wide matrix style dashboard that it basically contains data and kind of like illustrates for specific versions of Node, which things are supported or like which tests are passing. I can't really remember off the top of my head what it does, but kind of like we're very inspired by that format to be able to basically pick up conformance status of all implementations that are exercising themselves against the vectors. So we're gonna, like at one point, we're gonna initiate conversations with you guys to figure out what the best way to extract that metadata would be to like populate a real-time dashboard of client conformance.
Yeah, it shouldn't be any issue on our end.
That's awesome. Yeah, and definitely for Lotus, and I think also for Forest, we've got these implemented in CI. Ooh, we have Rahul's puppy.
Yeah, I think Eric wanted to see him. Sorry.
Awesome. Yeah, so we can test ongoing against all these conformance tests, which is also great for catching things like regressions and changes. Awesome. Any other questions for Rahul? I remember he had to leave. All right, then. Awesome. Then maybe let's move on to the FIP process, since we'd hop down to conformance testing, moving back up to the improvement proposal process. So if anyone is really watching the Filecoin project repo like a hawk, you may have noticed that the FIP 0001 got merged yesterday. Big thanks to Andrew for picking up Why Are You Sleeping's PR and pushing it forward. And so we now have an initiated repository for the Filecoin improvement protocol. Andrew, I don't know if you want to give a quick overview of this since you're here.
Sure. This was definitely a complete team effort, but modeled very closely off of the Ethereum improvement proposal process. So ours is very similar. You'll notice that I think the bulk of Fips will end up being technical, but we're also creating other categories for us to improve the FIP process. So there's avenues for you to do that. If you think there's ways we should be working on the project better, and then also another category for recovery Fips that we will work with the community to define in the future, but basically like a forum for discussing and raising and receiving consensus on a very limited set of fault recovery or chain rewrites that we might want to do. And then obviously like this forum, I think is the avenue for which a lot of these Fips will be discussed and aligned on. So looking forward to everyone's feedback on proposing Fips, commenting on them, and then receiving an alignment so that we can move forward and improve the network as a whole.
Awesome. Yeah. So FIP, we have 3 subcategories at top level of Fips: FTPs, FOPs, and FRPs. So technical, organizational, and recovery. But they're all Fips, and they all get to be sort of kind of like how you have EIPs, which also have ERCs as a subcategory of them, similar to that model. And the repo has some guides on writing Fips, has a template for Fips, and then this is the main repository where you get to add new Fips, including FIP 00001. And we do that for lexicographical ordering reasons so that we don't have the really annoying Ethereum problem where you go 1, 10, 100, and then all of the 1000s. And then you finally get to the 200s and then the 2000s. Anyway, this will help us stay organized as well. And so this is the one that Why Are You Sleeping got to push on, which lays out kind of the main process, and then we can improve this over time as well. But as you'll see, very heavily influenced by the EIP process, and also defines like the high level formatting and contents for important pieces. Yeah. So as there are Fips, and I know that there's already a number that are in like various groups like Radar or Backlog or other things like that to start proposing some of these to the group, but we should expect to see more of these start popping up, from any of our teams, but also from the community as they have ideas and suggestions for how we can continue making Filecoin better, which will be awesome. And we also will create a couple of forums through which we can do better discussion. Of course, the issues here is a good opportunity for that, but also using like the discuss.filecoin.io as a place where we can have more community discussion about these things. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks, Molly. I'll just add that we definitely view this as a community-owned process. So what Jeremy and Molly and I have put in here is meant to just be the seeding of the FIP process, if you will. There are, and you'll notice as you go through, there are components that are still be to define, like the FRP process is I think we have thoughts, but it definitely should be owned by the community. Same on the FOP process, and then there's a doc that contains like the mission. There's a section that contains the mission and like the governing principles for Fips that that like will help us guide our decisions. But again, like those principles should be owned and defined by the community as a whole. So please add comments and thoughts if you're like, hey, we should really add this or tweak this, things like that.
Awesome. Anyone have early questions, concerns, lessons learned from participating in EIP processes or other ecosystems improvement protocols? Now that this is up, I would think we do expect to start drafting Fips even before mainnet launch. So we'll expect to see kind of a backlog here of things that kind of are in that slightly longer term future, but we want the community to start thinking about and commenting on, and us to look at from an implementation perspective across groups. Cool. Well, feel free to look at that further, comment on it further as we go. I'm terrible at taking notes and talking at the same time, so I'll add notes for that later. Cool, then moving maybe a little bit into high-level status updates from the major implementations in terms of kind of what kind of the high-level status is, what you guys are working on right now, and kind of what's coming in the next couple of weeks for each one. So, Amr, do you want to go first?
Yeah, just unmuting. Yeah, so we're from Chainsafe. My name's Amr. It's nice to see everybody, and we also have Austin here on the call, who's the technical lead on the project. I'm the project manager. We also have Eric, who's one of the developers on this call. So our main goal right now is working towards syncing and interop. So like the vast majority of the developers on the team are working towards that. So we focused in the last couple of weeks on implementing the conformance tests, and as you heard, like they're all passing except for the ones that are marked as invalid. We've also been updating the VM and actors to match the latest changes. Only the minor actor is left, and we're almost done there. We've also been updating our chain syncer. Originally, when we implemented our chain syncer, it was a proof of concept because we thought we'd be using GraphSync in production, but since then, we realized we'll be using chain syncer in production, so we're updating that to make it production ready. And otherwise, we're making other updates such as the changes to message pool, all with the goal of syncing with the network and interoping. Our secondary goal is getting to a full node. And so that's sort of lower priority compared to syncing and interop. So if in the near future, you'll see mostly changes towards syncing and interop. But following that, we're also working on integrating the other Go components, so the storage miner and the storage and retrieval markets. For the storage miner, we have a PR in for this. We're almost done integrating it. We're just working out the final details. And for the storage and retrieval markets, for those of you who are unaware, there's another project within Chainsafe to implement an interface on top of Go fill markets, so what Lotus uses, so that both Forest and any other implementations can use it. That's pretty much done. There's one remaining pesky bug, but I think we're almost done fixing that. Hannah's been super helpful with us, helping us get there. And then the only other thing we really need to integrate storage and retrieval markets is to finish implementing pay channel. So once that's done and we add the RPC calls for the pay channel stuff, we should just be able to use the Go Fill Markets library. So that'll be super exciting. But yeah, just in summary, our main goal is working towards syncing an interop, and then, you know, past that, getting to a full node with the storage miner and the markets.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Amr on kind of what Forest's current status is?
Yeah, a couple. First off, sounds great. Like, sounds like y'all have great progress. I'm very impressed. When you said that you were integrating latest actors, is there a particular version that you're using?
So right now we're kind of pinned to 0.93, but obviously we're just going to update to whatever is coming next. The reason we've been kind of sticking to 0.93, even though I think there has been some new minor versions out, it's just because that's what's the test vectors are kind of pinned to right now. Plan is we'll just target whenever you guys have finalized your, you know, not the reset that happened or was planned to happen last night, but the one that's going to happen next week. And we'll just kind of, once that one comes in, I think Molly might have mentioned 0.0910. I'm not sure if you guys have like figured out which version, but then we'll just update our actors to that. But yeah, for right now, 0.93 is the commit. The only one that hasn't been updated is just the minor actor, just because it's like a kind of a bulky, there was a, you know, huge refactor, as you guys know.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we're running 0.98 in production right now, and I think next week's will just be the 1.0. I think that's the plan. Yeah, but that should not be anywhere near as big a jump as the recent one that y'all are making. It's a big migration. There's lots of types moving around and that kind of thing, but logic changes are much less, which is what's important at this stage. Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Ayush, in that case, you want to talk about Lotus?
Yeah, sure. What the hell is Lotus up to these days? Yeah, so Lotus is our reference implementation of Filecoin. We are currently in week 3 of our big space race competition, which is kind of where we've got a lot of attention from miners because there's money on the line. In terms of recent changes that you folks would care about, I think it would mostly be around kind of network upgrade logic, which will be needed if you need to sync the current network. So there's stuff in there. The information there might need to be conveyed to you. In terms of immediate priorities, yeah, basically all of our attention is on landing the specs actors migration from 0.98 to 1.0. This will definitely be a complicated thing, but it's something we really want to nail down before mainnet, because we might have to do it during mainnet, and we might have to do it somewhat frantically and chaotically during mainnet in the event of a crisis. So if we can get good migration logic done beforehand, that'll be great. And I would recommend that other teams kind of do the same as well. Using syncing our current test network as a baseline challenge works very well, because then you know that you can do it. Yeah, so that's our far and away our biggest focus in terms of consensus critical stuff for the next little while. Our aim is to have it next week, and we're making progress towards that. I don't think there's anything else that going on that's of too much relevance to interoperability or consensus criticality. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. I guess I will mention the new Go State Types repo. Y'all will run into this when you do make a jump up from 0.93. Basically, this was something that was created while we were addressing the question of upgrading actors. Essentially, actors had a bunch of types, some of which we expect will really never change. The big int is a good example of that, and some of which have a much higher probability of changing, say, the minor state, let's say. So we try to take all of the more long-lived types and move them into a different place entirely. So there's a new Go State Types repo that y'all will discover when you move up to, I think, 0.97 introduced it. So yeah, that's something to be aware of, but it should be a one-time manual migration of changing your imports and dependencies, and that's about it. The other thing I'll mention quickly that occurs to me is, again, within the context of upgrading, we added within Actors Code, there's now the concept of a network version. So essentially, a Lotus node can inform actors code that, or sorry, anything running the Filecoin protocol can inform actors code what protocol, what version they're at. This is through the runtime interface. So essentially, actors can ask, "Hey, what's the current network version?" and a node should respond. This allows for kind of thinner for logic to be executed. So if there's some message that, if there's some method that shouldn't be called before a certain epoch, you can kind of easily trigger that through one of these checks. More complicated migration, obviously, or more complicated upgrades have to be handled in various places. Yeah, I think that's all folks need to be aware of. Obviously, we're still fixing bugs and so on, but nothing that has affected consensus lately. And I know that we've got a lot of stuff pointed out from you folks. Austin, I think you in particular have raised a lot of good questions around, hey, why is Lotus doing this thing? It doesn't seem right. So I'm sure there's more of that. Please keep that coming. File issues and yell at us aggressively in Slack when you discover them. Because anything touching consensus is what we really want to figure out right now before mainnet. Yeah, that's where Lotus is at. I don't know if I missed anything. Jeremy, Magic.
I think that was a pretty good recap. I point out another thing we're also working on is just performance in general. It's a lot of different fronts there. I don't know if people saw, but I mentioned in chat, but we have some code going internally that should do pre-commit 1 in 2 hours, which is double the performance of our current code. So we're working on getting that integrated and shipped out. We also have, we didn't merge it in the 07 update, but we merged it right after, so it's in master. Some new performance stuff, making verification of snarks much faster using the BLAST library. And so that's like 3 or 4 times faster on a lot of like critical chain things. So that's very exciting. Yeah, and then also on the PubSub and Chainsafe front, there's continuous little things going on there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think an area for future work, as well as something that we're having a live network with a lot of people onboarding onto it. Something that's been coming up throughout the community as well is I don't know if it's quite chain throughput, but message selection, making sure that it's easy for people to get their window post messages onto the chain, and kind of prioritization logic around that. And so that's also an area that we're looking into to make sure the community is sane and able to do that, really, continue maintaining storage really effectively, in contrast to onboarding new storage. That's super important. Cool. Anything else on Lotus or any questions for you, Jeremy?
I just have a quick question, but after Space Race ends, are you guys going to keep supporting that network and keep upgrading that, or should we expect a new test net?
Yeah, the Space Race network is our test net, and we don't plan on resetting that.
Cool.
Yeah. Also, Thanks. If you're mining on Space Race, just keep mining.
Big Chungus, woo!
Yeah.
Big Chungus.
Yeah, I've just got a couple quick questions about that. So one around it wasn't mentioned in this call, but just for anyone watching on the YouTube, someone mentioned the block sync, or I guess block sync to chain exchange name rename and like the protocol name change. I'm wondering what your guys' plan is for like migration. Are you guys gonna have basically both protocols registered and then just like deprecate block sync once I guess mainnet comes around, or what's the plan with that?
Yeah, I think the way we usually do these, at least like we've gone through a number of these in IPFS side of things, is you just support both for a while, and then once you detect that enough of the network supports the newer version, you just drop the old one. It costs almost nothing to support both. So
yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. I was just curious to see what the plan is. One other quick question about the that like runtime call about getting the actors version. Isn't that kind of like a circular reference? Because I mean, the actors code that would depend on the version would be phased out based on the version of the actors code. Like, I don't really see how that gets you anything, because on the new version, say if you're upgrading from 096 to 097, if that code in 097 has that check, then how is it really checking anything? Because the code's already been upgraded to the 0.7 version, and you could just have that logic branch there. I'm kind of confused about how this is even.
Are you talking about the runtime method?
Yeah, the runtime method that would give you the actors version, or kind of.
So the thing, the use case of that is to tell the actors about forks. So this allows Lotus to set the fork schedule. So we can say that, you know, from 0 to height 30,000, it's, you know, network version 0. From 30,000 to 50,000, it's network version 1. And then beyond that, it's network version 2. And that way, the actors can do different things based on that information.
Gotcha. Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought you meant it was based on, it would give you the version of actors that it was using. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Good clarification. Anyone else have any questions for the Lotus team? Awesome. Then last but not least, Maxim, you want to give an update on Fohan?
Yep, thanks. My name is Maxim. I'm a team lead for the Suramitsu team implementing Fohan. Fohan is an implementation of the Filecoin protocol on C++. So our current status is here pushing our version to be mining and syncing in the testnet of Lotus-based nodes at the moment. So for now we have a version which is able to sync, but the problem with it is we are kind of blocked with our C++ libp implementation, which does not have fallback protocol of TLS, and as Lotus migrated to noise from CKIO, we are currently unable to connect to the node test net directly. So what we are doing now, we are implementing both noise and TLS. On the other hand, we still need to check the validity of interoperability of our version against the Lotus and the virtual machine, basically. And what we're doing is we're just getting we are downloading the basically blockchain via the Lotus and exporting it and then reapplying it on our own node. So it's kind of tricky, but it works. This approach works. So this is the way how we're testing interoperability at the moment. So what we have also faced is as we're trying to push really fast to deliver the node, which is able to sync and mine. Our last interoperable version against against Lotus virtual machine was against the Lotus, which was 0.4.2. I don't remember the version of actors exactly. And we have realized that to make it interoperable with the current Lotus version, we will have to make some significant enough changes that will take some time. So we decided to import spec actors directly from CGO, make spec actors Go library for C and use the calls partially use the calls to virtual machine actors from the spec actors library. As for the miner, basically we are currently finishing with the sealing part and the node API, which is required by miner. And then we are going to start testing it and probably against testnet of Lotus. Yep, and as for the markets and retail market and storage markets, they were ready for quite some time. Maybe we need to improve them in order. Well, if there were some changes, we haven't tracked it for I think a couple of weeks now. When we'll be having the fully working node, I will get back to this.
Awesome. Any questions for Fohan team?
No, it's really cool. Excited to see, like, definitely send us a ping when you're got something connected to the testnet. I want to see that. Oh,
Yeah,
also, are you guys setting a different libpdp agent version so we can like see the percentage of different nodes on when we do a libpdp create?
Yep.
Nice.
Well, probably yes.
Probably yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how it's done exactly. So basically, libp2p is developed by 2 teams in our company. So I need to check with another team whether it's simply
Cool.
or not.
Was there another question from someone else? Awesome. Cool. Well, it had a line here to talk more about the actors upgrade. I just have a quick async update from A North, whose time zone does not overlap well with this meeting. Just a little bit more on the actors upgrade and kind of what's working, what the actors team is working on. But we've talked about it a good bit already as part of the Lotus update. Main aim here is make it easy to version and upgrade spec actors so that as we need to make changes or eventually improvements that come out of Fips and things like that, we're able to version and improve spec actors much more easily. And so we're doing the upfront work now of making that simple instead of pushing that out far into the future. One thing Alex did call out was definitely this kind of implies work for other implementations as well, because it means that chain state will be versioned at periods of time. An opportunity to minimize that and also minimize kind of the chain syncing costs, because right now, we do have a high throughput, fast growing chain, is to also have checkpointing. And so this is something that we've got kind of some basic formats now, but then combining that with state pruning will also allow us to effectively have much smaller checkpoints that folks can kind of rebase from over time. And that minimizes to some extent this potentially, depending on what points in time we choose, can minimize the time frame under which other implementations need to have versioning implemented for their spec actors. Because if we choose a time when we checkpoint and throw away the past, or archive the past is maybe a better way of saying it, then other groups would be like, great, we can start from that point. I don't know if anyone, either Ayush or Jeremy, had other points to make about the actors upgrade logic, or if folks had other questions on that.
No, I think we covered all of the information that I can think of to share. I've shared, but I would not be surprised if y'all have more questions about it. So raise them now or bring them up on Slack, I guess.
Cool. Well, in that case, I'm at the end of the proposed agenda for today. Does anyone have any other parking lot topics, any other agenda items they'd like to add or talk through?
Not really an agenda item, but I really like wrestling with interoperability issues and consensus breaks. So if there's ever one that seems really nasty that y'all are banging your head against, feel free to ask me. I'd love to jump on a call and see if we can bang it out.
Just out of curiosity, why was the change from SecIO to noise?
So noise in particular, generally TLS is the main one that we use, but switching to noise is like the cross-language interoperable one that say is also, we have a version in JavaScript that works in the browser. And so all of the implementations are moving that direction. And we're actually working on deprecating SecIO right now in IPFS. And we'll have more to release once we do that and move the network off of SecIO entirely. But we think that using kind of generalized security transports that are kind of well used in many places and well maintained and audited by other groups is really good and a good best practice. And so that's part of the motivation for the move away from ZecIO. Yeah, so I believe like, yeah, ETH2, IPFS, pretty soon it'll be fully gone from most of the major deployments of libp2p.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we've been syncing with using noise as the protocol, so that's been all good. I was just curious.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Well, I'm always a fan of ending early, so even better. Got through all of our stuff, yeah, faster than expected. Cool. So the next expected one of these meetings is 2 weeks from now. If folks have proposals for chime changes or any other sorts of things like that, feel free to make them in the repo. It's a great place to coordinate. And also, I'll start a new issue right now for the agenda for 2 weeks from now, and folks can add things over time if anything comes up on your radar as an opportunity of things to sync on. And if anything comes in through the FIP process, that'll also be the sort of thing that may end up on the agenda if it's in a status that is ready for that versus maybe more early community discussion. Cool.
One quick question, Molly. This is largely for you, I suppose. But it does sound like, these implementations aren't ready to use yet. They're getting pretty close. I was wondering what plans we have to kind of seed folks to start using these, whether they're miners or other projects that we have going on.
Yeah, it's great. I would be very, very happy for a good distribution. Maybe we can get the Phil Fox dashboard to not just have versions, but also have different implementation percentages. And then we can push the mining community to make sure that we spread out across different implementations so as to increase the security factor that comes from many different interoperable versions. I think probably V0 there is like, let's get them all up and running on testnet and interoperating really nicely. And then probably the thing that would be useful from there is presenting them, highlighting them to the community, and also highlighting the variable benefits. It's like, oh, with this implementation, you get these sorts of benefits. This part is faster, and we have these sorts of tests to demonstrate that. And so that'd probably be kind of the next step from there, is demonstrating to the community why they might want to be using which implementation in particular, and then encourage some groups to do so. I think we would absolutely, on the few nodes that we run, would be very happy to be running all three. Would be great. It helps us all stay in sync with each other. And I know that Chainsafe also has a mining operation, so I imagine having that would also be Big Chungus running Forest would be snazzy. And then we have I think we're still a little bit, I don't know the exact status. It's a question for the ecosystem team on like seeding mining communities, especially small miners, and encouraging them through grants to continue building up. But that could be a good opportunity to put out some support for groups that adopt other implementations and help push them forward and contribute back to them as well to do so. It's a good nudge, Ayush. I'll add it to the notes.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I think whatever product efforts we have going on as well in terms of, I don't know, just random like dev communities and so on, hackathons, whatever, might be interested in trying out different things. And that's the kind of like, that's the right experimental atmosphere for trying out brand new implementations too, I think. So just some thoughts.
That's great.
All right.
Anything else? Big Chungus TM, very important. I love Big Chungus. It's phenomenal. I missed that meme somehow. Never heard of Big Chungus before, and now, oh, this video. So many videos. It's great. Cool. Well, it sounds like that's it for this week's our first of our core dev meetings. Thank you so much. It's been really fun, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Hey,
Thanks
guys.
for your time.
Thanks. Bye. See you in 2 weeks.